invite up Rowan Liazos Coffey for a moment of stewardship.
Good morning. As you all know from today, I'm involved in confirmation. I am also very active in our church's youth group. Today, I would like to share a story of faith with you all from last year's mission trip. As some of you may know, last year our church went down to McAllen, Texas. McAllen is right along the Texas-Mexico border and is right around 150,000 people. And of these, around 105,000, or 70%, speak Spanish as their first language. And an even crazier statistic is that in Hidalgo County, which includes McAllen and all of our work sites, about 88% of people there speak Spanish as their first language. To put that into perspective, the national average is about 13% of Americans who speak Spanish as their first language. Suffice to say, where we were was one of the highest concentrations of Spanish-speaking people in the entire country. We saw this almost as soon as we got there, with every single sign being written in both English and Spanish. This trend was only reinforced more when just the second person I said hello to there responded strictly in Spanish and no English. When we arrived at the local church who we were partnered with, I quickly realized that many of the community members there only spoke Spanish. However, despite this language barrier, they welcomed us with open arms into their community of faith, made every effort to try and understand us. For some of us in the youth group, we may have been able to speak some Spanish from learning it at the high school or at home, but for many youth group members, their vocabulary was limited to thank you and hello. So verbal communication was practically non-existent. Regardless of this verbal border, I felt that we were able to quickly break past it through shared interests such as sports, music, and worship. A specific story that I would like to share took place on our third day of the trip at the Catholic Charities Foundation. I know this specific charity elicited eye-opening experiences for many of the other youth as well due to the nature of our work. For those of you who weren't on the trip or haven't heard from your kids, Catholic Charities is a 72-hour facility. This means that the people there have 3 days where they get food, shelter, water, and clothing. While they're there, they attempt to get a bus ticket, plane ticket, or train ticket to somewhere in the U.S. where they have a relative waiting to support them. As the parents try to coordinate this travel, the kids often have very little supervision or anything to do, and this is where we came in. After we helped cook and serve food and organize their storage room in the morning, we got to spend the whole afternoon playing with these young kids. Some of them were around 3 or 4, all the way up to 12 or 13. But I'd like to share a story about one kid in particular who I met. His name was Jesus. He was 12 years old, and he and his family had just traveled around 2,500 miles from Venezuela. For those of you who aren't aware, Venezuela is currently, and has been for the past few years, facing extreme political corruption and economic collapse, which has led to one of the largest forced exoduses in human history of multiple millions of people. They fled, fearing their lives or being forced into poverty. And as we talked, he went on to describe the entire journey, which took over 3 months all told. First, they flew from Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, to Mexico City. As trying to cross the Darien Gap in other parts of Central America is virtually impossible. From there, they spent the next month and a half traveling the 650 miles to McAllen via cars, buses, and for many hundreds of miles, walking. One of the things that makes this journey so tough that people don't realize is the cartel. Throughout all of Mexico, there are different territories and groups, and for many of them, one of their main sources of profit has become human trafficking, specifically across the border. Even for people like Jesus and his family who crossed the border 100% legally, they were still stopped and forced to pay the cartel to continue in fear of their lives being taken or their possessions being stolen. Eventually, they were able to reach the border, and once they reached there, they used an app called CBP-1 to schedule an appointment which allowed them to cross. This appointment can take weeks, if not months, to actually go through, and after 6 weeks, they finally got it. So for the time being, for those 6 weeks, they are forced to stay in one of the many migrant camps near the border, which are dangerous, unsanitary, and overall inhumane. Once they got their appointments scheduled, they showed up and were approved, allowing them to legally enter the U.S. Once in the U.S., they got a bus into McAllen, where they found the Catholic Charities and where I met his cell. After he finished telling me his story, I took a few minutes to sit there and think about how truly grateful I should be for everything and every opportunity I have in my life. Throughout the rest of that day, he took me to meet his parents and his two younger siblings, a sister and a brother. One was 2 and the other was 5. And he told me about his uncle in Chicago and how they're leaving tomorrow to go live with him. But outside of this incredible journey, Jose was just a normal kid. We talked about our favorite sports teams, played soccer and basketball using paper balls and trash cans, and made fortune tellers. Looking back on that experience, it amazes me just how happy and energetic he was. Just a few months before, he had been forced to leave his home and everyone he knew behind him. That didn't stop him from being kind to me and everyone around him. The last thing we did before I had to leave was a prayer together. He took me over to this box where he picked out and handed me rosary beads, which I have with me today. We held the beads in each other's hands and just prayed for each other, our families, and anything we felt like we needed to. This experience taught me so many things about myself, my faith, and who I strive to be. But above all, I think it taught me that regardless of how different you may look from someone, regardless of if you don't speak the same language or practice the same traditions, treat everyone the way your faith calls you to, with love, kindness, and respect. And with that, I'd like to leave you all with my favorite verse, Galatians 3:28, which states, "There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, neither male nor female, for you are all one in Jesus Christ." When you support Tricon, you are supporting new ways to experience faith for people of all ages. This morning's offering will now be generously given and gratefully received.